welcome into the Fantasy Overtime, everyone. I'm Justin Graver, and Zach Lyons is married, so he's not here
Married
today.
Lions.
Married Lion. Well,
Congratulations to Zach.
congrats to our buddy Zach, and welcoming in Ryan as his replacement today. Ryan's done this job before, and he was amazing, actually. So this
Thank
will
you, sir.
be in your guys' benefit to have Ryan here instead of Zach because me and Zach were, you know what, this is the most accurate show. Last week is in the past. We don't really talk about last week anymore. Bad beats happen. We're going to move on, focus on this week. Let some people come on in. We are the Fantasy Overtime presented by Broadway Sports. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan Boren. I agree. This is a great shirt. Where
That
can
is a
we get
fantastic shirt.
a shirt like this? Of course, shop.broadwaysportsmedia.com. New styles available now. Go check out broadwaysportsmedia.com. And while you're there, check out shop.broadwaysportsmedia.com. But we are here to talk about fantasy football, some sports gambling. We're going to take your questions. So send your questions into the chat now. We'll get to those. While we wait for some, I'm going to read some people who are out today. Ryan, you tell me what kind of impact you think it's going to have. Joe Mixon is set to miss today's game. Bengals are playing Washington. Looks like it's going to be Giovanni Bernard again. How do you feel that one goes?
Well, I held on to Giovanni Bernard just in case, and I think you said Mixon was going on IR as of today. So
Yes.
so Bernard may be a good pickup for the next few weeks as well. As far as how I feel about Bernard personally, I always think he has a little miss in his game as far as whether he's hit or miss. But I think he's a must. I think he's a must play today, just based on his matchup and the fact that he's going to get some handoffs. He's going to get some touches.
I agree, especially even though that D line's tough, just the fact that he's the only guy in the backfield, you can feel
Right.
confident. This Detroit Carolina game is gonna be interesting because Detroit has a number of injuries they're working through, including Matthew Stafford, his thumb. He's expected to go, but who knows if he'll be like himself. And then Teddy Bridgewater is dealing with a knee injury. They like ruled him out earlier in the week, and then that's not really true, I guess. He's gonna test out the knee before the game today and try to go.
Yeah, I'm iffy on both quarterbacks today, but I will say this: Stafford has a history of playing through injuries and playing through pain. So I'd be more comfortable with Stafford finishing the game if we were betting on who's going to finish the game than Bridgewater. But I think Bridgewater has a really good has the better matchup if he's healthy and if he's in there. Just based on the defenses they're each facing. So Stafford, the thumb and being on a quarterback's hand, obviously is a little concerning, but Bridgewater a knee planting and everything like that. So it's just I didn't feel great about either one of them. I would avoid either one starting if you had other options that were equal to or better. But of the two, I would feel more comfortable with Stafford just because he has a history of playing through the pain. And not that Bridgewater's weak or anything, because he's come back from a lot himself. The knee bothers me, I think, a little more than the thumb.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think that this whole game is kind of I'm just kind of trying to stay away from it, even though both these defenses are really exploitable, it feels like
Right.
what's going to happen in the Detroit backfield is going to be Adrian Peterson day because DeAndre Swift is out after having his best game of the season so far. And
Well,
so,
reports are they're going to split with Kerryon Johnson.
I
So I
know.
mean, again, you don't really know who you can trust there in that backfield either. And going over to Carolina, it seems like Mike Davis should pick up the slack with McCaffrey out again. However, Curtis Samuel's waiting there, but those two kind of affect each other as well. I know they don't technically play the same position, but Samuel can be used in that hybrid role. He's Samuel of those four names you've mentioned. Samuel is the one I would roll with today. He was my pick in the flex this week as well. I just have a good feeling about him versus Detroit and how Carolina could attack him, especially if Bridgewater does have to come out. Then your short passing game is really important at that point in time.
Right. So we're still waiting for some questions in here. We have one that's I'm not going to answer this question because it makes me sad, and we're just going to move on from
Hi,
that.
Ben. Hi, Ben.
Drew Lock expected to play today despite the rib injuries.
He's got a good matchup too.
We'll see how I am all in on Miami today, which terrifies me. We'll get to that in a bit. Alan Lazard expected to make his return for Green Bay, so that could be a big boost to their passing attack against the
But does
Colts.
that worry you? Just out of curiosity, because they got Devonte Adams as the dude there, right? But then Scanlon has seemed to come on. Mobile Azan Valdez, whatever Scanlon seems to be coming on as well. So I mean, Lazard, who was great before he got hurt, comes back in now. And do you have confidence in starting either one of those two receivers not named Adams?
Not in this matchup against Indianapolis. Definitely a wait and see, but I think Lazard is an interesting stash if you can grab him in your league for the down the stretch. I think the Packers play the Titans soon, and you know that passing defense is terrible.
That's why I'm very intrigued in Lamar Jackson today, just just a little bit,
I got
just a little bit.
We got some questions here. I actually do love Lamar Jackson from a daily fantasy standpoint today, but
Yeah,
let's talk about this question from the Brody. Playoff spot on the line. Oof. Start two. That's a lot of pressure. Start two, sit two between Todd Gurley, Amari Cooper, Robert Woods, and Brandon Cooks. This is a revenge game for Brandon Cooks up against the
yeah,
Patriots.
yeah. I'd be tempted to roll Brandon Cooks in there because he's been hot of late. He's been kind of a hot name in fantasy as well, so I'd be real tempted for him. Dallas, I think I'm out on anything Dallas just because. I mean, I don't care what the matchup is. I know it's whatever, but I'm just out on Amari Cooper. So now we're down to between Todd Gurley and Robert Woods for me.
Hmm.
Is it a PPR league? Because if it's a PPR league, then my answer is I'm going Robert Woods.
Agreed. But if it's not
So
PPR,
I'm going with Todd Gurley.
I agree. And Todd Gurley was my sit this week on the flex, but
He's still going to get touches.
he is the most likely chance of anyone on this screen here to get in the end zone, and that's what
That's a good point. Yeah.
fantasy's about. So, yes, that's our recommendation. However, I will say I'm not totally out on Amari Cooper. I don't think this is a great game for Robert Woods against the Bucks on Monday night. Half point PPR. Does that affect your opinion?
Half it half affects my opinion. um, you know what? I Cooks, and then if you want to roll the dice with Cooper, I think. I mean, because what is it that Warren always says? Start your studs.
Right.
Always go. And Cooper very much is a stud. I mean, Dallas has this stank on it that maybe I'm a little biased because it's anybody behind Cooper's not really getting anything right now. So maybe Cooper is still the guy and still can get you some points there. But you have a good point about Gurley getting the most points. I just honestly think you've got to go and look at that. Maybe that's it, because if you're starting this position, I'm guessing in the flex, then you probably just need to go with who's going to be most likely to get a touchdown for you. And that may be Gurley. So maybe I'm switching to Gurley and Cooper.
Yeah. All right, let's look at this next question here from Max Craven. Any dark horse running backs out there? Because all of mine are on IR. LOL, I'm screwed. Picked up P. Ryan. I actually love LaMichael P. Ryan for the Jets this week. That's a pretty good spot. And then I'm just kind of thinking about maybe who could be possible. Who else is a running back on the Texans? Who do they have besides Duke Johnson? Because he hasn't run effectively, and if they're gonna try to run the ball against the Patriots defense, which they should, I don't know if they will, you might look at trying to just like hope that like how Bo Scarborough had random carries on Thursday night against the.
Yeah, it's a Scarborough sighting. I was like, where'd he come from?
I feel like we could see a situation like that in Houston with CJ Procise. They elevated him from the practice squad before last week's game. I don't know if he's playing today. If you're looking for a true dark horse, I mean, I like P. Ryan for sure. Salvin Ahmed, we've mentioned he's not really a dark horse. He's like
Ahmed. Yeah,
the hot name of the week, so I wouldn't really say he's a
yeah,
dark
he's
horse.
probably not a dark horse because he's probably been picked up by everybody because his name was out there everywhere.
Kerryon Johnson, going up against the Panthers defense. The Panthers have a terrible run defense, so if he's going to get some touches, or if you can still grab Adrian Peterson off waivers.
What about Balaj out for the Chargers? I mean, not out. No, he's not out. But what about him? Like, I mean, I think he's around 55% in league, so maybe he's available depending on what kind of league you're in.
Yep.
He might not be bad. He's got a really good matchup versus the Jets today. And if the Chargers get up, then that's going to turn into a running game, and that might not be a bad one to go. He's not really sharing too much right now, so I'd be tempted for him if he's available.
Yeah. Yeah. So check your waivers and let us know. Good luck, Max.
Max, if you can check your waivers real quick and give us a couple names, maybe we can give you some insight on those names, possibly.
Ben Wright is back to ask us about Mark Andrews versus Hunter Henry.
Hold on. Not just your tight ends, sir. Not just your tight ends. Tight ends everywhere have been super hit or miss. It's just, we talk about this on the flex all the time about how if you have any sway over your fantasy league whatsoever, lobby like hell to get rid of the tight end position, because you can still have Kelsey in the flex. I can't reach the button right now. In the flex in those leagues. So that's our advice going forward. You can't do anything about this year, but we hate tight end position because it is just super hit or miss. That all being said, Mark Andrews and Hunter Henry, Graver, I cut you off. What is your opinion there on that?
I lean Mark Andrews. It just makes me sad.
Yeah, well, you got to be smart here. And Ben won't have a problem doing this
Right.
because he
In
whatever.
fact,
He's
he'll
a sports
take a
fan.
lot of pleasure in playing Mark Andrews against the
Right.
Titans.
I did have been kind of an Achilles heel for the Titans, right? It seems like if you are ever in a situation picking between tight ends and who could not, then always look to see who's playing the Titans, especially if you're going to watch that game, because it seems like that's a position that typically can get some play versus that defense. I'm not saying it's going to happen because I have this weird feeling about the Titans defense today. I don't have anything factual to back that up. I just all week I've had this weird feeling of like, of course, with like 40 people out, this is going to be the week the Titans defense does something. Because they're just going to say, screw it, blitz this, blitz that, do this, do that, and just play balls to the wall. But I mean, that'd go against how they played Baltimore in the playoffs. So I'm not sure they'll do that. They'll probably revert a little back to playing it safe and just letting Lamar make mistakes or giving him that opportunity. But there's just something like I can't explain this weird feeling I have. The Titans are just going to go gangbusters on the Ravens on defense.
So
So,
would you recommend Hunter Henry? I mean, the Jets defense is not good either.
yeah, and so there's the thing though too with Chargers is that it's probably a big the receiver Mike Williams game possibly if he's not hurt
Or Keenan. I think
again.
it's Keenan Allen. I'm all
Keenan
in on
Allen.
Keenan
So I
Allen
mean,
today.
that's my only worry about anything Chargers related for Hunter Henry is that he's sharing a lot there, and Mark Andrews seems to be especially in the red zone, seems to be a pretty big target. So even if the Titans defense does somehow do good today, there's still going to be some red zone opportunities because the Titans defense still is very much bend but don't break, which means they're going to be down in the red zone quite a bit. And Andrews
Right.
is very active in the red zone, so I'd still be tempted to lean towards Andrews.
Yeah, same. Well, Zachy, too busy to be on
Hey
the show,
Zach.
but he's got a question. Marvin Jones versus Carolina or Devonte Parker versus Denver, non PPR. Now, this is the thing, is like Marvin Jones has such a good matchup, but the quarterback situation is a big question mark. Denver's defense has been playing better. I mean, a little bit better. They got what's his name? The AJ Bouye played last week, I think, for against
Yeah.
the when they lost, they got killed by the Raiders. But I don't know. I feel like Parker was so close to a few big plays last week. He almost had that touchdown. They ruled out of bounds. Like he was so close to getting the connection with Tua and with Preston Williams out for the done for the year. Like that connection's gonna have to pick up if the Dolphins want to be successful. So I mean, Marvin Jones seems like the easy play, but I think Devontae Parker has more upside.
Well, and Devonte Parker was my pick on the flex this week, just because I go with a feeling that it's more one of those things where that connection has got to go with Tua at some point. Tua is not playing awful so far to start. The numbers don't really back up, but he's making some nice reads. He's making some nice throws, and he's got a very active arm. So Devonte Parker on some slants could be a dangerous thing. So I personally, if I had to pick these two, would go with Devonte Parker, I would think. But I've actually when all of our questions do slow down, I do have a Marvin Jones related question as well uh, to go into. But I think that I'd lean Devonte Parker there just because I think at some point in time that connection's got to go. And now they've got more practice time to work and get familiar with each other. And he's still, because here's the thing, Parker, I think we discussed, is still getting targets. I think he's still getting 7, 6, 8 targets per game from Tua. They just haven't quite connected yet. So I think the numbers are coming.
Let's get to your questions then, because we've stalled out in the chat while we wait for a few more here. We've got maybe 5, 10 more minutes of answering.
Okay. I had a friend text me this morning. We had a long discussion about Justin Jefferson versus Dallas or Juju Smith-Schuster versus Jacksonville. Let me just go through it a little bit. So Jefferson and Juju Smith are both coming off 20-point fantasy games. Juju has double-digit scoring in his last 4 games: 17 versus Tennessee, 13 versus Baltimore, 21 versus Dallas, and 22 versus Cincinnati. Jefferson, his last 4 was 39 versus Atlanta, and this is a PPR league points I'm going off of. But 5 versus Green Bay, 9 versus Detroit, and then 21 versus Chicago. So there's been a little bit more peaks for Jefferson, but a lot of valley, where Juju's been very consistent over these last 4 weeks. And he seems to be ramping up as we're getting close, like as we're going too. So he's becoming more in favor with Ben Roethlisberger. Claypool, I'm not saying he's falling out of favor because he's still big. If you watch the games, he's still getting the deep shots. They're just not making the connections as much. And Ben's going back to his kind of a safety blanket, if you will, Juju Smith-Schuster. And I know that we railed on Juju. I've always been a big Juju Smith-Schuster guy. And of course I faltered as well. I think I'm back on Juju Smith-Schuster again. But what are your thoughts on those 2 players?
Well, again, as you said, I am a big Juju boy. I've always loved Juju Smith-Schuster. So in this particular game, though, because of what you mentioned there about Claypool getting the deep shots, this seems like the type of game to me that I think is a Chase Claypool game based on the
Sure.
defense that Pittsburgh is playing this week, with
With
Jacksonville being
Jacksonville.
so bad against the pass, and like they give up big plays in the passing game. So I feel like you're going to see, like maybe Juju takes a 5 yard catch and takes it 50 yards, but I honestly think this is a big Claypool game. Those Jefferson games have come when they had to throw the ball a little more. Like those two down weeks you mentioned, Dalvin Cook ran for like 170 or 150 and then 200 yards those 2 weeks. So
Right.
he when he was running that well, the Vikings didn't even throw the ball hardly at all. So Cousins wasn't even looking at Jefferson. The thing is, Thielen gets the end zone shots, but Jefferson's been getting targets a lot over the past few weeks, and or at least in these two games out of the last four that you read, where the Vikings were actually throwing the ball. What's interesting to me about the Vikings Cowboys game, the Vikings opened as 8.5 point favorites in this game. The reason that the Vikings are good when they're good is because they are able to run the ball so well. But I'm a little worried about Dalvin Cook coming off a 30 carry game on Monday night, so
Right.
he's less time to get over that. Going up against a Cowboys defense that isn't good, but is coming off a bye, that they've had a chance to kind of regroup. The Eagles lost last week while they were at home on a bye, so they had a chance to. They could have been sitting at home going, "Man, our season's over. The Eagles are going to run away with the division." But now the division's still in play. They can make a run. The Cowboys I'm talking about. I hate
How?
the Cowboys.
How is that division still in play?
I know
Good
it's ridiculous.
grief.
I hate the Cowboys. I don't think they're good, but I think that Andy Dalton can play better than he's played. And I like the Cowboys +7 today, at least to keep it kind of competitive. I don't think that the Cowboys win the game, but it makes me think that Justin Jefferson will stay involved in the Vikings offense. So that was a
Fair.
long answer to say I like the Cowboys +7, but I also like Justin Jefferson. And I'm
Okay, of
scared of
that
Dalvin
scenario.
Cook. If you're like, look, Dalvin Cook is the chalkiest chalk play of the history of DFS today. I think everyone's going to play Dalvin Cook because of his matchup, because of his usage, because, I mean, his price. He's going to, right? Everyone's in on that. I am fading Dalvin Cook in DFS today, and that might come back to bite me, but that 30 carries on Monday night thing really scares me.
Right. And that's the thing I've always got to keep in mind when I'm setting my fantasy lineup is not just the good matches, but I got to look at the guys that maybe other people aren't playing that could have good games because that's when you make your money. As I've noticed that, like, I'm trying to compare myself to the guy who won the $20,000 pot or whatever the day of fantasy. I'm like, oh my gosh, we had the same five players here, but how did he know to start this dude
Right.
over? I'm like that's he didn't have a good matchup and he hasn't done it. That's what you got to look for. You got to look for the guys who aren't going to be on all the teams because then, say you do win the big pot, but 40,000 other people also have the same lineup. Then you split,
I'd be okay splitting.
$40,000.
Yeah, I'd be okay
You're like,
splitting. Right.
congratulations, 40,000 other people are also getting that $40,000 pot.
Right. You
Congratulations.
got to get some leverage off the field there. And, I think Derrick Henry's a good leverage off the field play because I think a lot of people are going to be on Dalvin Cook, and the Ravens are going to be missing Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams. They're both listed as doubtful for this game. I'd be shocked if either one of them play. Just going to open
Yeah.
a big hole in the middle of that offense. I know Roger Saffold's
Well,
out, but
yeah, but here's the thing: Jamil Douglas is a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. Sambrello so far this year has been a much better run blocker than a pass blocker. If you're judging them too, Nate Davis has been both. He's been great. Dennis Kelly is a much better run blocker than his pass blocker. Ben Jones has been better in the run game than he has been in years past. He got beat up a little bit this game, but he had some injuries. So I'm saying all that to say this is a big Derrick Henry day. And I'm saying all that to say that I think that the Titans are philosophy-wise going to go back to basics today on the Ravens a little bit to try to shorten this game up and not give the Ravens as much chances. Try to get these drives. They're not going to be so like if you have a Titans receiver, I'd be real tempted to fade them today and go with anything running game wise because I think Henry's going to get a lot of carries. I think Foreman is going to get a lot of carries, and I almost said Freeman is going to get a lot of carries, but I think it also goes back to how they're going to try to go about their philosophy, and B, if you look at the offensive line that they're going to have to start today, they are much better at run blocking than they are pass blocking, and I think that regardless of everything else, they want to try to protect Tannehill, right? So I think that you're going to have to attack plus Baltimore maybe down some run stuffers. It all just lines up too well for it not to be a Derrick Henry day.
agreed. All right, no more questions in the chat, so we can get out of here soon. But before we do, I want to turn it over to see if you had any questions for me.
I do. So we talk about daily fantasy. We talk about, but we also talk about betting. And then in Tennessee, you have the betting sports books now. You have access to so much more. I'm a novice with all this so far, and I'm trying my best to learn. I read your articles. I try to catch up, but it's all a little intimidating, right? So maybe if there's other listeners out there that are like me and could use some help, what could you go into? First of all, let's take an easy one. Who is a good underdog if you want to lay some money on? Who's a good underdog for you today that you were going to lay some money on for a win?
My favorite underdog today is the Philadelphia Eagles. From a money line
Okay.
standpoint. If we're looking
Okay.
at a team that I think is going to win, not cover the spread necessarily. If you're looking at covering the spread, I love the Jets. The Jets are 9.5 point dogs against. Oh, the line has moved. The Jets are officially double digit dogs, which is normal. The Jets are always double digit dogs.
Right.
The Chargers are double digit favorites. The Chargers, the two-win Chargers, who have won exactly one game by 10 points this whole season. That's their ceiling. That's their best game. That was against the Jags. They won by 10.
So two things real quick on that. The Jets have been better with Flacco
They have.
somehow. And so that does intrigue me, that 10 point. You've got a lot of leeway there because they just have to lose by 8 or 9, right? So, I mean, that seems like a good one. Plus, the Chargers, how many times this year have you seen the Chargers be in very winnable games and then, oh my God, they just lost? What the hell happened? So, I mean, that you're right. That's probably not a bad one to think about.
I got to give credit to Zach for saying it would be the most Chargers thing ever for them to lose to the Jets this year.
Right.
But
Right.
also the Packers are technically underdogs. Packers are 2 point underdogs. I like the Packers to cover against the Colts. They're only plus 110 on the money line, so that's a little better than 1-1. But you're almost better off getting the 2 points just in case Indy kicks a game-winning field goal and wins by 1 or 2, and then you don't lose the bet. But I want to talk
Right.
about Philly really quick because I think a lot of people are in on Cleveland. But the line actually opened Cleveland minus 3.5. It's moved to Cleveland minus 2.5. So I actually liked it way more when Philly was getting a field goal. That 3.5 was big for me because I do think the Browns can easily win this game by a field goal. But the Browns have struggled a lot lately. Last week was the week everyone thought the Eagles were going to get back on track. And I just feel like now that because they didn't, and a lot of people bet on the Eagles against the Giants, like I feel like everyone's off the Eagles now. And I just think that when that happens in the NFL, there's not expected to be big wins in Cleveland today like they thought there would be early in the week. I think that Carson Wentz, Jalen Rager has been leading the team in targets the last couple of games since he returned from injury. They get an offensive lineman back today that was supposed to play last week who didn't end up playing last week. He's going to play today. The Browns, I mean, Baker Mayfield, you trust in Baker Mayfield? Without Odell Beckham, like I like the Eagles today, and that might be to my detriment. We shall see.
Yeah, it's big. So I got a couple other questions for us. Moving on to as well. That's good advice. But what are there any over unders that intrigue you that you would bet on?
There's only really I was looking at these. I've been okay. I haven't had a whole lot of success betting totals this year. The bad beats with the 2 point conversions and the missed extra points are killing me on my over under picks this year. But the one I like today is actually tomorrow. It's the Monday night game. It's Los Angeles versus Tampa Bay. The total's right now at 48, which seems high to me for these two teams. I know the Bucks have a really explosive offense and the Rams can move the ball too, but at the end of the day, I feel like both teams want to run the ball, grind it out, use their defense to not ask their QBs to do too much because Goff can't read a defense and Brady's getting up there. I mean, Brady's played really well.
Yeah, but there's a pretty big factor on the defensive line for the Rams.
Exactly. So I think that, Aaron Donald, bad run defender, could be.
Worst take of 2020, maybe.
So this feels like.
Sports
Yeah.
take.
Oh, yeah. So this feels like almost like it's going to be like a playoff atmosphere to me. And playoff
Yeah,
games are always
fair.
so low scoring and defensive struggles. The last time Tom Brady played Jared Goff was a Super Bowl, 13-3 final score. That obviously is pretty irrelevant, but uh I just think like, we saw everyone thought they were going to go over 55 against the Seahawks last week with the Rams. 6 consecutive Rams games have gone under the total. I know 48's a lot because everyone looks at Tampa scoring 40 points themselves last week, but that's a lot different defense than what they're facing up with the Los Angeles coming to town. Under 48.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's good under. Also, okay, so real quick, moving on because I hear you talk about this a lot, and I have no clue what you're talking about. What's a teaser?
A teaser. A teaser is my favorite type of bet to make when it comes to sports gambling because basically it's like a parlay where you trade in some of your odds that you get. Like if you pick 5 teams in a parlay, you usually have pretty great odds. I think if you pick the lines, it'd be 6-1 for a 5-team parlay. With a teaser, you tease the line a number that you get to choose based on your book. They'll offer different lines. I bet I can choose 6, 7, 10, or 13 point teaser. Some books offer a 4 point teaser, which will give you better odds. Obviously, the more points you take, the less odds you get. And just like a parlay,
Right.
you have to get all of your lines correct to get paid out. But what's not like a parlay is that you get this leeway to be wrong in your pick. So let's say I like the Cowboys +7. I could tease that 6 points and get Cowboys +13 and tease that with Green Bay +2 to make it Green Bay +8. And now Green Bay only has to stay within a touchdown. Cowboys only have to stay within 2 scores. And if either of those things happen, if both of those things happen, you win the bet. But you don't need the Cowboys to
Right.
win by 7. If you like the Chiefs to win outright against the Raiders tonight, but you're worried about the line because the Raiders have played well, which I am, 7.5 points is a lot. You could tease that 7 points and basically make it a pick 'em for the Chiefs. So basically, what you do is you select the lines. It can be over unders or spreads. You can't use money lines because there's nothing to tease there. Teasing spreads is typically viewed as not being as valuable because you're teasing 6 points off of both teams' scores. Whereas when you tease 6 points on a spread, you're teasing one team's score by 6 points. So you're basically
Gotcha. So you're picking out of one barrel instead of picking out of two, which is better for
my
you.
favorite teaser actually, and so sorry. I don't know why I said that. I'm not ready to get there yet. But yes, yeah. So you can tease lines that you feel like are the spread's too big, but you like the team, and change your odds that way. I love betting teasers on teams that I think are gonna win, but I'm not super confident in the line. Or even if you are super
Okay.
confident in the line, when you're wrong, you can still be wrong about the original line and get the win, which is, you know, that's a win in
Okay.
gambling.
It's a good tease. All right, so that helps me out a lot. I still may not pull the trigger. I've dabbled a little bit in the last couple of weeks of what I could possibly do on some sports, but I've the one I told myself to do. I thought I did. I would have won some pretty good money because it was a game where I said someone was going to score a touchdown first, and I was so excited. I went to my sports book. I was like, "Yeah, I won money." Oh, where is it? Crap! I guess because I didn't hit all the way, even though because you selected, you still have to then go and submit
Right.
your ticket. And that's what I didn't do. Because I still had the ticket up, or it said declined or something. I was like, oh no, I can't. I don't know. I don't even remember which player it was, but I nailed it. It was like it was the AJ Brown game where he scored the long touchdown. When on that long touchdown, I said that he was going to score first, and I would have gotten money. And oh well,
Yeah.
because it was really good odds too for him to do it on that day. So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'm trying to look for easing my way into it because I've done the daily fantasy stuff. I just haven't done all. And the sports book should be new for a lot of Tennessee residents, right? I mean, there shouldn't be a whole lot of it. I mean, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't be experienced, but would be. It hasn't been available readily every week, so it's kind of new for the Tennessee residents or people that could be listening to the show. So I just want to get into it a little
Yeah.
bit. So thank you for helping me out with some of those
I
questions.
love the Dolphins
I,
today. Dolphins are my lock of the day. But the problem is the Dolphins are everyone's lock of the day. 97% of money, spread money, is in on the Dolphins. Why is this line not higher? This is weird. Something weird's going on here. When everyone's on a team, I'm terrified. I'm just terrified. But like all the logic says the Dolphins should blow the Broncos out, right? It's in Denver. That 3.5, like, Denver's had these fourth quarter miracle runs where they've like scored 20 points in the fourth quarter, 3 games in a row. I'm just so worried that Miami's going to be up by 10 with 4 minutes left, punt it to Denver, and they're going to score a meaningless touchdown with 1 minute left and make it a 3 point game and cover the freaking spread.
all right. Right. That'd be just awful. Cool, man. I've got one other personal question. Okay, you got it. Do you have
It's
a
not a question,
question?
just
Like 5 or 10
fun
bucks.
little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Max. Let me know how that goes because I've been real tempted to do that as well, and I can't quite pull the trigger on doing it. But it's also I haven't. And again, I'm still learning the app. Right, I'm still learning how to navigate through everything because it is a little intimidating because you go into the prop bets and freaking a man, it's just what all you can bet on
Right.
is so overwhelming to me a little bit. when you go through these things, because like I said, I haven't spent much time on this stuff at all. So I go through and you can do last touchdown, first touchdown, if they even score at all. I think there was one of like, do they get 80 yards rushing? Do they not get 80 yards rushing? Do they get this amount of passing? It's just all this, like, I'm like, wow, that's because you can really dive deep into games and say who's got really a good matchup to have a surprise game and really shock some things and maybe go over this number if it's good odds. So, and that's the thing too, is you typically just do you look for the good odd stuff and then make decisions based on that? Like, do you look at what could pay out and then see if you want to bet on it?
Yeah, so definitely have to look at value because like Derrick Henry's over is usually. Sorry, my dog's.
That's all right.
Uh, Derrick
You're
Henry's.
on the road, man. You're dealing with road game stuff.
We're
It's
in
cool.
Texas, maybe. Yeah. So Derrick Henry's over is usually juiced like minus 150, minus 160 or something because he usually hits his over. So like I don't
Right.
like to bet on that because you don't get to win a lot if you even if you win, right?
Right.
Um, but I do like to look at prop bets. The touchdown scorer bets, those are usually juiced in favor of the house a little bit. Almost all those bets are going to be juiced in favor of the house a little bit. At the end of the day, the book wants you to make a lot of bets because the more bets you make, the more chances they are. Like if you make a ton of like little like $5, $10 bets on every game, you might come away with a little bit of a profit. But if you pick the 3 games you feel the most strongly about, and every week you pick the 3 games you feel the most strongly about, and you bet more money on those 3 games, like yes, you're going to be wrong sometimes still, but I just feel like, I mean, it depends on how smart you are. If you if you are not good at picking games, then maybe don't do that strategy. And I've been on a cold streak myself. I mean,
Yeah.
no
If you
doubt about it.
if you pay attention to our Pick'em article, I have been declining in a hurry. Like I try to switch it up a little bit. I still get it wrong. It's been awful for me. I think I'm two spots out of last place. I'm going to be down there with Lebowski in like 2 weeks here.
I like Dolphins on the money line. It is minus 200, which means the opposite of 2 to 1. You have to, if you bet $10, you only win 5 plus the 10 you originally bet. But so 10 to pay 15 to win 5. Um, but that is a lot safer way to bet on the Dolphins. One thing I will say about teasers is if you tease a team that is like, let's say I teased Miami, who's minus 3.5, 6 points. That would make Miami plus 2.5. It's called teasing through the zero. It's technically not good strategy because you're basically, because if you think about it, minus half a point, zero, and plus half a point are all the same thing, right? Like you have to win regardless of if you're plus half a point, minus half a point. So that's like a whole point in value that you're not actually really getting to tease because it's like it's meaningless to you. So the best
Right.
way to tease a team is through the 3 and through the 7. So like the Packers this week at +2 are an ideal 6-point tease. Because if you add +6, not only do you get through the 3, you get through the 7, you get Packers +8. 3 and 7 are obviously key numbers because that, like most NFL games are decided by a field goal or a touchdown.
Right.
So
So that's
just
huge.
little tips.
You're really you're giving yourself a lot of wiggle room there.
Exactly.
Okay, I actually may do that today.
All right. Any other
Maybe.
questions? Last call for
If there's,
questions.
I've got one last personal question just because I teased it earlier, and it's just I want to get your thoughts on Curtis Samuel. I said I had another question with him involved. Curtis or Marvin Jones, Curtis Samuel or Marvin Jones?
Ooh.
Marvin Jones, obviously Galladay's out versus Carolina, who is ranked 12th versus the pass, and then Curtis Samuel with McCaffrey out versus Detroit, 15th versus the pass. But again, there's some quarterback questions for both these guys. We kind of talked about earlier with the quarterbacks. This is the flip side. This is my own personal roster. Like I'm trying to decide between these two and in the fantasy league. So
I would probably play Marvin Jones. He's been a
okay.
touchdown machine, but I don't feel good about it.
So if I do this, I'm going against my advice on the flex, right? And I've been decent on the flex recently with some of my advice. So
Yeah. Hey,
that's
maybe
kind of my. Do I want to go against myself here?
no, you don't.
For myself,
Your gut instinct said Curtis Samuel.
right? Right, it did, still does. So I think that's probably who I'll go with, and just live with the results. I think that you've got it, and that's the thing about fantasy, man. I know it's frustrating, but it's like pick 'em. You've got to make the best decision that you can live with, with the information you have at the time. And then Jonathan, our CEO, Bourne, has a great line that he tells me every week. It's pointless to watch your fantasy team throughout the day because there's nothing to do about it. One,
Right.
you're just going to drive yourself crazy, and B, you've made your picks, set your lineup, walk away. Don't stress out. What'll be will be. There's no reason for you to sit there and check it every 5-10 minutes and go, what's going on. Now, if you have a daily fantasy league, I can understand checking it there because that changes. That's so volatile and that changes on the second. So I get that. But I'm just talking about your regular fantasy lineups. Set them, forget them. Don't second guess. Don't play the whole, if I'd have started this guy, I would have gotten this, or if this guy wouldn't, don't play that game because you have to make the best. Now, if you, a situation where you start someone who's out and gets guaranteed 0 points for you, stop that. I've done that too many times. Stop that. But that's the only time that you should really stress. But that's all I had. That's the last question I had. Thank you for the daily the betting, the sports book advice. Hopefully it'll work out for me this week because it hadn't yet.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about everyone betting on Miami, right? Is we can all win together, even though
Let's
I'm
do it.
terrified of that. We
Let's
could
do
all
it. Let's
lose
all win.
together.
Let's all win together.
Let's all win together. All right, that'll do it for the Fantasy Overtime, brought to you by Broadway Sports Media. Be sure to check out BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We'll be back for the halftime show during the Titans game and the postgame show afterwards. So definitely come back and find us then. Follow us on Twitter at BroadwayTN. And that will do it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back soon.